Three black SUVs rolled into the Scarborough Community Market parking lot on a Saturday morning in March, and every vendor under that covered pavilion went quiet. Not because trouble was coming, not yet, because in a market where everyone arrived by TTC or squeezed four people into a Dodge Caravan, three black SUVs arriving in a row was the kind of thing you noticed. The kind of thing you pointed out to the person next to you and said quietly, "Something is happening today." The man who stepped out of the middle vehicle was tall, dark-skinned, in a charcoal gray suit with no tie. He was carrying a single yellow tulip and a thick manila envelope. He walked straight through the market entrance, down the center aisle, past the jerk chicken vendor, past the Caribbean bakery, past the aunties selling fabric near the entrance, and stopped at a small booth near the back. Booth number 14, with a hand-painted sign in green and gold, Enyonam's Kitchen, Jollof, Fufu, Light Soup, Home. The woman behind the booth had her back to him. She was stirring a pot of groundnut soup. She didn't hear him coming over the market noise and the sizzle of oil, and the sound of a bylaw enforcement officer across the aisle telling her friend Diallo that her tablecloth display needed to be packed up immediately. The man waited for her to turn around. When she did, she went completely still. Because she knew that face, not the suit, not the manila envelope, the face, from a Tuesday afternoon 4 months ago, outside a Shoppers Drug Mart on Lawrence Avenue East, the man who couldn't pay for his medication, the man she'd stepped out of line for, the man she'd handed her last $40 to and never seen again. He was supposed to be broke. He was clearly entirely not broke. Before I tell you what happened next, and I promise you, what happened next will stay with you, check that subscribe button right now. If you believe in stories where the humble rise and the arrogant fall, you're in exactly the right place. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the justice coming in this story is something else entirely. Now let me take you back to where it all started. November, 4 months earlier. The kind of cold that made you question your life choices. Not the romantic Christmas card cold, the gray, wind-cutting cold of a Tuesday in November in Scarborough, when the sky is the color of old dishwater and the TTC is running 8 minutes late and everyone on the platform is staring at their phones because eye contact feels like too much effort. Enyonam Darko was at the back of the line at Shoppers Drug Mart on Lawrence Avenue East. Winter coat buttoned all the way up, tote bag on her shoulder, a prescription for iron supplements that she was quietly calculating in the back of her head whether she could afford. She had $47.20 in her account. The supplements were $19.99. That left $27.21 for the rest of the week, until the market's Saturday deposits came in. Tight, but doable. She was thinking about whether she could skip tomato paste and use diced instead when she noticed the man at the front of the line. He was maybe 45, medium height, in a North Face jacket with a small tear at the left sleeve, dark trousers, boots that had seen better winters. He was speaking quietly to the pharmacist. Enyonam couldn't hear the words, but she could read the pharmacist's expression, that careful, professional neutrality that pharmacy staff practice for exactly these situations. The man was $34.50 short. His blood pressure medication was $56. He had 21 of 50. He was already starting to say, "I'll come back," when Enyonam stepped out of line. She didn't think about it. She moved the way her mother always moved when she saw someone in need, like the body knew before the mind had finished deciding. She put 2 20s and a 5 on the counter. "I'll cover it." The man turned around. He had a quiet face, the kind that didn't show things easily, but right then it showed everything. Surprise, and something underneath the surprise that was softer and harder to name. "You don't have to," he said. "I know I don't." She looked at the pharmacist. "Ring it through." The pharmacist rang it through. The man took his medication. He turned to her. "Why did you do that?" Enyonam looked at him. She was tired, up since 4:30 to prep the soup stock. Her back ached in the particular way it always did by Tuesday. She had $2.20 in her pocket after that transaction. "Because you needed it," she said, "and I had money." She picked up her own purchase, a bottle of B12 $7 cheaper than her original choice, and walked out. She didn't get his name. He didn't get hers. though he saw it just barely on the loyalty card that slipped from her wallet when she pulled out the cash. Enyonam D, printed in the small green type of a shopper's Optimum card. He didn't ask her to wait. She walked out into the gray November cold, turned up her collar, and disappeared toward the bus stop. He stood in the pharmacy doorway and watched her go. He had $1.2 billion in assets across 4 countries. He had just accepted $40 from a woman who was counting coins. His name was Sekou Diallo, and he was not going to forget. But before you understand what Sekou did next, you need to understand who Enyonam was. Enyonam Darko was 32 years old, and she had been running booth 14 at the Scarborough Community Market for 3 years. Jollof rice, fufu with light soup or groundnut soup, fried plantain, chin-chin for the kids, meat pies on weekends. She had repainted her sign twice already because the market's conditions were brutal on anything that wasn't industrial grade. The third version she sealed with exterior varnish her neighbor had left over from his deck. It was faded now, but it was standing, like Enyonam herself. She was from Ho in the Volta region of Ghana. Her mother, Mama Akua, still lived there, in the same house with the guava tree in the yard that was taller than the roof now. Mama Akua had raised Enyonam and her younger brother Bright alone after their father passed. She sold palm oil and dried fish at the Ho market, walking those kilometers every day for 20 years. She saved for 5 years to buy Enyonam's plane ticket. 1 ticket, 1 daughter, 1 chance. Go and build what I could not. Enyonam arrived in Toronto at 22 with $200, a church contact in Scarborough, and her mother's voice in her head. She worked night shifts at a packaging warehouse in Mississauga for 2 years. She cleaned offices in North York. She took a food handling certificate course at a community center on her days off. She saved every dollar that wasn't spoken for. Rent, transit pass, phone bill, money home to Mama Akua every month without fail. The food booth was the first thing that was entirely hers, not a shift schedule, not someone else's kitchen. Her recipes, her hours, her corner. Her regulars knew her by name. Mr. Amponsa, who arrived every Saturday at 8 sharp and called her Mides even when she asked him to please call her Enyonam. Devon, who had discovered her jollof rice 2 years ago and now drove in from Etobicoke every weekend. Auntie Celestine, who ran the fabric booth 2 stalls down and brought Enyonam puff puff wrapped in foil every Friday evening because she said Enyonam worked too hard and ate too little. "You are fading," Auntie Celestine would say, pressing the warm package into her hands. "I'm fine, Auntie. Fine people do not eat crackers for lunch. I had crackers and peanut butter." Enyonam. She laughed. She always laughed, even when the hydro bill came in and she had to choose between that and restocking cooking oil. Even when the market management sent its 3rd letter in 2 months citing noise bylaw concerns about cooking equipment. Even when everyone at the market knew exactly who was filing those letters. His name was Bradford Holt. Bradford Holt was a property developer who had been buying parcels along the Lawrence Midland corridor for 18 months. He had a vision: mixed-use residential towers, ground-floor retail, a revitalized community hub that would, incidentally, displace everyone who'd been there for a decade. The Scarborough Community Market sat on leased land Bradford wanted. He had approached the property owner, a Trinidadian-Canadian man in his 70s named Mr. Frederick Chambers, twice with offers. Mr. Chambers had declined both times. That market has been there since 1987. Mr. Chambers told his daughter on the phone, "Those people feed this neighborhood. I'm not selling." So Bradford went another route. Noise complaints, parking enforcement calls, a lawyer's letter claiming the vendor licensing structure was non-compliant, an anonymous tip to the city's bylaw office about fire safety violations at a cooking booth. Every month, something new. Every month, the vendors pooled resources to respond. Every month, Enyonam paid her portion of the shared legal fees and came back the next Saturday at 5 in the morning to set up. Her friend Diallo, who sold hand-woven textiles 2 booths over, said it plainly one evening as they packed up. "He wants us gone, Enyonam. He is not going to stop." "Then we don't stop either. We are running out of money to fight with." Enyonam folded her tablecloth. "What does your mother say?" Diallo gave a tired smile. "My mother says God sees the person who keeps standing." Then let's keep standing. What Enyonam didn't tell Diallo, her share of the last legal response had cleared out her savings buffer entirely. Her commercial kitchen rental was 60 days past due. She had $2.20 left after the pharmacy. She kept standing, but the ground was getting thinner. Sekou Diallo had been born in Conakry, Guinea. His father, Baba Ibu, drove a taxi. His mother, Mama Fatoumata, sold mangoes and bissap at a stall near the port, where the smell of salt water and diesel mixed with the sweetness of the fruit she arranged every morning before dawn. He came to Canada at 17 on a partial scholarship to a Montreal Cégep. $200 his parents had pooled from savings and borrowed from neighbors. He spoke French and Pulaar and almost no English. He learned English by working the front counter of a dépanneur in NDG and reading the newspaper during slow hours. From Cégep to Concordia, from Concordia to a master's in engineering at U of T, from engineering to a startup building community solar microgrids in underserved urban neighborhoods, the kind of project that almost died 4 times before an infrastructure fund finally saw it and invested. By 38, a millionaire. By 42, a billionaire. By 45, the founder and CEO of Diallo Ventures, a clean technology and community infrastructure firm with offices in Toronto, Montreal, Accra, and Conakry. His face had appeared on the cover of Report on Business magazine, named to Canada's top 40 under 40 twice. And completely alone. 2 relationships that taught him the same lesson. Roxanne, who spent lavishly and left when Sekou suggested they try something smaller. Natalie, who was quiet and kind, and who, 18 months in, he discovered had been routing money from his personal accounts through a joint investment fund she controlled. After Natalie, Sekou built walls. His driver, Aliou, a fellow Guinean who had been with him for 7 years and who was funnier than anyone Sekou had ever met, was the only person who could get through them. "Boss," Aliou said once, pulling up to Sekou's building in Yorkville, "you need to get out of your own head." "I'm fine. The last time you laughed, it was at a pigeon falling off a ledge 3 weeks ago. It was genuinely funny. You are lonely." Sekou got out of the car. Then one night, Mama Fatoumata called from Conakry. Sekou. Just his name, the way she said it like she could see through the phone. "I'm here, Mama." "When is the last time someone did something kind for you without knowing your name? Not Diallo Ventures. Not your money. Just you." Silence. "Go find out," she said. "Put on ordinary clothes, leave the wallet, find out who in this world sees people, not what people have." By morning, he had called Aliou. "I need you to drop me somewhere and not come back for 30 days. A long pause. "If something happens to you out there, your mother will blame me. She's the one who told me to do it. Then she'll blame herself, same result." Another pause. "I don't like this, boss." "I know, pick me up in 30 days. Sekou spent 26 days moving through Toronto without a name or a wallet. He ate at soup kitchens. He slept at a shelter on Jarvis where the lights stayed on all night, and the man in the next cot talked in his sleep in a language Sekou didn't know, something that sounded urgent and gentle at the same time. He sat in community center waiting rooms on hard plastic chairs. He took the TTC and watched how people looked at each other, or didn't. He learned things $1.2 billion had never taught him. He learned that the line for the Out of the Cold program on Danforth forms at 2 in the afternoon for a 10 o'clock opening. If you arrive at 6, you sleep outside. He learned that the woman running the free bread table at a church basement on Parliament Street knows the name and birthday of every regular, with 200 people cycling through her week. He learned that in this city, the distance between a stable life and no life at all is 1 job loss, 1 landlord, 1 bad month. Every night on a thin cot under fluorescent lights, he thought about the woman from the pharmacy, the way she stepped out of line without hesitation, the way she said because you needed it, and I had money, not performing it, not making a speech, just stating the facts of the situation, the loyalty card, Enyonam D. On day 27, he called Aliou from a payphone on Queen Street West. "Boss, are you breathing? I need you to find someone. Give me what you have." A woman, first name Enyonam, last initial D Shopper's Drug Mart loyalty card. She was at the location on Lawrence Avenue East on a Tuesday in November. She runs a food booth at a market in Scarborough somewhere. She was buying B12 supplements. A long pause. That is not a lot, boss. She's Ghanaian Iwe name that narrows it. It took Aliu 60 hours. Loyalty card account, partial trace, market vendor license, business registration. He brought the file to Sekou. Her name is Enyonam Darko. Booth 14 at the Scarborough Community Market. Jollof, fufu, light soup, 3 years at the same location. Aliu paused. There's more. A developer named Bradford Holt has been running a sustained harassment campaign against vendors there. False bylaw complaints, city enforcement pressure, lawyer letters. The property owner keeps refusing to sell, so Holt is trying to make the market untenable. Another pause. And her commercial kitchen rental is 2 months overdue. Her effective bank balance is 0. Sekou sat with that. She handed me $40 she didn't have, he said, and went back the next morning and opened her booth. Yes, boss. Find me everything on Bradford Holt. Every property, every loan, every building permit in the corridor, every city contact. What are you planning? First, I need to know who she really is. Over the following 6 weeks, Sekou sent people to booth 14. He sent a nervous teenager $4 short for a plate of jollof rice. Enyonam waved it off before the boy finished his sentence. Eat first, worry later. She slid the plate across. He sent an elderly Jamaican man who said he'd never tried Ghanaian food and couldn't read the handwritten menu board well. Enyonam came around the counter, stood beside him, read every item aloud, described the taste of each one, let him try 3 small spoonfuls before he decided. She gave him a full plate at no charge. First time at my booth eats free. That's the rule. He sent a woman who spoke only Somali and French, who looked exhausted and lost. Enyonam couldn't speak either. She went 2 booths down, found a vendor who knew Somali, brought her over, and spent 15 minutes between customers, helping the woman find the nearest community services office. She packed her a container of soup for the road. For the journey, mama. He sent a young man in a shelter intake wristband who hadn't eaten since the previous morning. Enyonam fed him without one question about the wristband, refilled his bowl when it was empty, gave him her phone to call someone. 4 times the same thing, real, unrehearsed, unperformed. Aliu compiled the reports and placed them on Sekou's desk without commentary, just set them down. Sekou read every page. He stood up and walked to the window of his Yorkville office and looked out at the city for a long time. The most genuine person I've watched in years, Aliu had written at the bottom, and she seems entirely unaware she's doing anything out of the ordinary. After that, Sekou began visiting booth 14 himself. Plain coat, jeans, no driver, just a man on a Saturday morning at a Scarborough market. The first visit, she didn't recognize him. She served 200 people on a busy Saturday. He was just another face. He ordered soup and rice. First time at my booth? First time at this market. Then this one's on me. First-timers eat free. House rule. You can't run a business giving food away. She looked at him with an expression balanced evenly between amusement and patience. I know how to run a food business, sir. Eat. He ate. It was the best groundnut soup he had tasted since his mother made it. He came back the following Saturday, and the one after that. By the 3rd week, she recognized him. My returning customer. She was already reaching for the ladle before he reached the counter. Same order? Same order. That means either the food is very good or you live nearby. The food is incredible. I know. She smiled, no apology in it, but thank you for confirming. They talked. Short conversations at first, in the gaps between customers, then longer. He learned about Mama Akua in Ho, about the guava tree taller than the roof, about her brother Bright, who called every Sunday, and who was finishing his electrical engineering degree. She learned he was in business. He didn't specify what kind, and that he was Guinean, had come to Canada through Montreal. She never asked what kind of business, never asked where he lived. She asked whether he had eaten before he came to the market. She asked if he'd called home recently. She asked once, carefully, whether his parents were still living, and when he said his father was gone, she stopped what she was doing and looked at him. Mine too, she said, when I was young. I'm sorry. Me too. She went back to the pot, then it makes you carry them differently, not less, just differently. He didn't know what to say. He nodded. She talked about Bradford Holt the way you talk about a persistent toothache, not with drama, just with fact. He's been filing complaints for 8 months. We respond, we comply, he files another one. We're running out of money to fight. She said it plainly, the way she said everything. What does your mother say? Sekou asked. Enyonam laughed, short and real. Mama Akua says the tree that bends in the storm does not break, but she's never met a Bradford Holt. What do you say? She was quiet, stirring. I say I'm not leaving my booth. Then, softer, I built this from nothing. I am not leaving it for a man who wants to build condos nobody in this neighborhood asked for. The letter came on a Wednesday in March. Enyonam was at her commercial kitchen at 5 in the morning, prepping soup base for the weekend, when her phone buzzed with an email from the market management office. Subject: vendor license review, immediate action required. She read it twice. A formal complaint had been filed regarding repeated fire safety concerns at booth 14. The city's bylaw enforcement office was conducting a site review the following Saturday. Pending the outcome, her vendor license could be suspended. She sat down on an overturned milk crate in the middle of the kitchen. 3 years. 3 years of mornings starting at 4:30. 3 years of oil burns on the back of her wrist from a fryer that ran too hot. 3 years of propane cost calculations and hydro bills and market fees and money home to Mama Akua. 3 years of people who came back every week because the food was good and the woman behind the booth saw them. And now a bylaw review, on a Saturday, filed by someone anonymous who had known specifically to target fire safety concerns about a cooking booth. She called Diallo. Bradford, Diallo said immediately. I know it's Bradford. What are you going to do? I don't know. She looked at the soup base on the burner. I don't know. She called Mama Akua, evening in Ho. She could hear the television in the background. Mama. Enyonam, I hear it. What is wrong? She told her everything. Mama Akua listened. Mama, I can't afford another lawyer. The review is Saturday. I have nothing left to fight with. Mama Akua was quiet for a moment then. When your father passed, men came to tell me the house was not mine, that the land was in his name and I had no claim. A pause. I stood in the doorway with you on my hip. You were 4, you don't remember. And I told them, this is my floor, I will stand on it until I am bones. They left. Another pause, because some women are more expensive to fight than the house is worth. Mama, this is the law. The law is made by people. People can be moved. Then she called Sekou. She still didn't know his last name. She called him because of 6 Saturdays of soup and honest conversation, and the specific way she trusted someone who kept showing up without wanting anything back. They're suspending my license. Bradford got the city to pull my review Saturday. How much time? 3 days. A silence on the line, then don't pack anything, open Saturday morning at 5 like always. Sekou, if the bylaw officers come. Open your booth. What are you planning? Do you trust me? She stood in the commercial kitchen with soup on the burner and 3 years of her life on the line. I trust you, she said. Saturday morning, booth 14, 6:30. Enyonam had been there since 5. Soup going, rice ready, plantain sliced and waiting. Mr. Ampansa arrived first, same as always. He looked at her face and said quietly, "You are worried today." "A little." "I will wait, and I will not go anywhere." Auntie Celestine appeared at 7. No puff-puff this time, just herself, standing 2 booths down with her arms crossed like a woman prepared for something. Bradford Holt arrived at 11:15. Suit, briefcase, 2 bylaw enforcement officers, and a market management representative trailing him. He walked with the ease of a man who had already won. He stopped at booth 14. "Mrs. Darko," pleasantly, "I believe you received the notice." "I did. I want you to know these concerns are legitimate regulatory matters. If the booth passes today's inspection, we can discuss a path forward." The pleasantness thinned slightly, but I think we both know what the inspection is going to find. Enyonam kept both hands on the counter. "Order something, Mr. Holt, or step aside. I have customers." Bradford smiled the smile of a man with lawyers, city contacts, money, and time. He nodded to the bylaw officers. And then, from outside the pavilion, car doors, more than one all at once, a change in the air of the market the way air changes before weather, voices carrying. 3 black SUVs in the parking lot. The man who stepped out of the middle vehicle walked through the entrance and down the center aisle in a charcoal gray suit, no tie, 1 yellow tulip, 1 manila envelope. He walked past the jerk chicken vendor, past Auntie Celestine, who saw his face and put her hand over her mouth, past Mr. Ampansa, who stepped aside, past the bylaw officers, past Bradford Holt, whom he did not look at, not yet, straight to booth 14. Enyonam was holding a ladle. Her soup was beginning to boil over. She could not move. "You," she said, "just that." "My name is Sekou Diallo," he said. "I'm the founder and CEO of Diallo Ventures." She stared at him, in the suit, in the whole impossible situation. "The pharmacy," she said. "Lawrence Avenue East. A Tuesday in November. You stepped out of line for a stranger with $40 you had no reason to spend. You said because he needed it and I had money. Then you went to the bus stop." He placed the tulip on the counter of her booth carefully. "I spent the next 30 days without a name or a wallet trying to find out if the world still had people like you. And then I found you. And I found what was being done to you." The market was entirely quiet now, person by person, booth by booth. Sekou turned to Bradford Holt. He did not raise his voice. He turned with the patience of someone who had been preparing for this for weeks, calmly and thoroughly. "Mr. Holt, we haven't met Sekou Diallo." Bradford's expression performed a complicated series of adjustments. "I've reviewed your development portfolio along the Lawrence Midland Corridor," Sekou said. "You're over-leveraged on 6 properties. Your financing on 3 of them runs through Prestige Community Lending Group." He opened the envelope, which I acquired through a subsidiary holding company 8 weeks ago. He began placing documents on the counter of Enyonam's booth, one at a time. "Copies of 12 complaints filed against vendors at this market, all traceable to your company's IP address or to contractors in your employ. Each page landed with quiet weight. 3 anonymous fire safety calls, also traceable. Correspondence between your office and 2 city bylaw officers discussing the timeline of enforcement actions at this location." He set down the last page. "All forwarded this morning to the City Integrity Commissioner, CBC Toronto, and the Globe and Mail." Bradford Holt stood in the middle of the Scarborough Community Market and said nothing, because there was nothing to say. Every instrument he had turned against a woman with a hand-painted sign had just been laid out on her counter, in front of 2 bylaw officers and 60 witnesses, by a man who had arrived in 3 black SUVs for a woman who fed people from a booth the size of a garden shed. Sekou looked at the bylaw officers. "I am the legal owner of this property, purchased from Mr. Frederick Chambers 3 weeks ago. Every vendor at this market has my full written authorization to operate permanently, at a fixed rate, for as long as they choose. My legal team is filing the updated property protections with the city today." A pause. "This market is not closing. No one here is being pushed out." The officers looked at each other. They looked at Bradford. They put their clipboards away. Bradford Holt walked out of the Scarborough Community Market. He did not look back. Mr. Ampansa started clapping, one man slow and certain. Then the whole market followed. Enyonam was crying by the time the applause settled, not dramatically, quietly, the way you cry when the thing you were most afraid of losing has just been returned to you by the last person you expected. Auntie Celestine appeared at her side immediately, one hand on her back, saying something low and warm. Sekou waited. When Enyonam looked up at him, she said, "You bought my market." "I bought your market." "And the bank that was funding the man trying to take it." "His lending company, yes." "Sekou," she wiped her face with her apron. "My soup has been boiling this whole time." He looked at the pot. He laughed. She laughed, and then she cried again, which made him stop laughing, and look at her the way you look at someone when you finally, fully understand what they have been carrying. Bradford Holt's financing was called when Prestige Community Lending Group restructured under its new ownership. Two other vendors along the corridor came forward with documentation of similar harassment campaigns. The city opened an investigation. Bradford's development applications were frozen. His over-leveraged properties went into receivership. He did not build his luxury corridor. 4 months after that Saturday, Bradford Holt walked into the Scarborough Community Market on a weekday morning in a wrinkled shirt and no briefcase. A different man, no suit, no sedan, no sunglasses. He had lost the projects, the investors, the reputation he had spent 10 years building. He stood at the end of the line at booth 14 like any other customer. When he reached the front, Enyonam looked at him, the man who had called her a regulatory concern. The man who had filed anonymous fire complaints and sent lawyers and tried to take everything she had built. He looked at her face and he looked away, and his hands were not entirely steady. "A plate of jollof," he said quietly. "Please." He reached for his wallet. Enyonam pushed his hand back. "First plate is God's plate," she said. "I don't charge for God's plate." Bradford stared at her, his eyes filled. "After everything My mother says the person who keeps standing is the person who wins." She set a warm plate in front of him. "You lost. That's already done. This is just breakfast." Bradford Holt ate jollof rice standing in the parking lot of a market he had tried to destroy, fed by the woman he had spent a year trying to push out. Some lessons don't come with speeches. Sometimes they come with a paper plate and a warm meal on a Wednesday morning, handed to you by someone who had every reason not to. Sekou came back to booth 14 every Saturday, same order, but now she knew who he was. And knowing changed everything and nothing. "You could eat anywhere," she said one evening when they were folding the tablecloth together after closing. "You literally have a helicopter on standby. Your food is better than anywhere a helicopter can reach." That is a very expensive compliment. It's just the truth. She looked at him across the folded cloth in the low light of the market pavilion after everyone had gone. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" "Because I needed to know who you were first." He set down his corner of the cloth. "I did, from the pharmacy." She was quiet for a moment. "My mother is going to lose her mind when I tell her about all of this." "I've already spoken to your mother." Enyonam went still. "Sekou. I sent a team to Ho. The roof of her house had been leaking for 2 rainy seasons. It's repaired. Her medical checkups for the next 3 years are covered. Bright's final year of university fees are taken care of." She sat down on a market chair and put her face in her hands. Not from sadness. From the specific feeling of being seen completely, practically, without performance, by someone who had no obligation to see her at all. "Mama Akua called me," she said finally. "She said a man came and fixed the roof. She told him a woman in Canada sent him." She looked up. She said, "Whoever this man is, my daughter, do not let him go. Your mother is a smart woman. She makes palm oil soup. Your mother sells mangoes. Then they already have something in common." Mama Fatoumata flew in from Conakry 2 months later. She held Enyonam's face in both hands, rough, warm, working hands, and said, "You paid $40 for my son when he was nothing but a stranger in a pharmacy line. You fed him at your booth. You never once asked who he was or what he had." She shook her head. "You are the kind of woman I prayed he would find. Not for the money. For the character. There is always a difference between the two." Enyonam cried, Mama Fatoumata cried, Sekou stood nearby, and Aliou handed him a paper napkin and said very quietly, "Boss, you can cry. Nobody important is watching." "I'm not crying. Your eyes are doing something. It's dry air. It is March." Aliou. "Crying, boss, completely fine." The market story spread the way real things spread. Not overnight, but steadily. A community paper first. Then a national outlet. CBC ran a segment. Diallo Ventures announced a vendor infrastructure fund supporting small food businesses in underserved Toronto neighborhoods. Enyonam's kitchen expanded from weekends to 5 days a week. She kept booth 14. "You have the resources now," Delali said one afternoon. "A real restaurant, a proper location." "One day," Enyonam said, "but not yet." "Why not yet?" "Because this is where I figured out who I was." She looked at her hand-painted sign. Third version, sealed with deck varnish, faded but standing. "You don't leave the place that made you." Not until you're ready to carry it somewhere else. Sekou proposed on a Saturday morning in March, 1 year after the SUVs, at booth 14 between the early rush and the lunch crowd. He got down on one knee on the concrete market floor in jeans and a plain coat. You stepped out of a pharmacy line for a stranger, he said. You fed people who couldn't pay for 3 years on a corner someone powerful tried to take. You cried alone in a commercial kitchen at 5 in the morning, came back the next day anyway. Your hands have never stopped giving. He opened the ring box, a simple gold band engraved on the inside with one thing, 40. Will you marry me? Not Diallo Ventures. Not the SUVs. Me. The man who couldn't pay for his medication. She looked at him on his knee on the market floor with the hand-painted sign above his head. You're proposing next to a deep fryer. I am. There is palm oil on your knee. I know. Mr. Ampansa is filming this on his phone. Good. She pulled him up by the lapels. Yes, you absolute yes. Mr. Ampansa started his slow, certain clap. The market joined him the way it always did when something worth applauding happened in booth 14's corner of the world. They were married 4 months later. At the market, string lights from the pavilion rafters to the awnings, 60 guests. The vendors in clean clothes pressed especially for the occasion. Mr. Ampansa in a suit he had ironed himself that morning. Auntie Celestine in kente cloth she had been saving for exactly this kind of day. Devon in the third row, 45 minutes from Etobicoke, right on time. Aliyu was best man. His speech made everyone laugh and cry at the same time, which he considered a professional accomplishment. I have driven this man to board meetings and international airports. I have waited outside buildings where decisions worth hundreds of millions of dollars were being made. The best thing I have ever driven him to was a Shoppers Drug Mart on Lawrence Avenue East, to trace a name on a loyalty card, to find the woman who gave him $40 and changed the rest of his life. Mama Akua watched on video call from Ho new roof above her, Bright beside her with his arm around her shoulders. Mama, can you see me? Enyonam asked. I see you, my daughter. You are so beautiful. I'm getting married in a market, Mama. You are getting married in the place where you showed the world what you are made of. There is no church more honest than that. The vows at booth 14. Sekou, I promise you soup on your worst Tuesdays. I promise you the man in the plain coat who showed up without a name. I promise that this booth will always be yours for as long as you want it. Enyonam, I promise to always have $40 in my pocket, just in case another billionaire forgets his wallet in the pharmacy line. She paused. But there had better not be another one. The market laughed, then the market cried. The ring went on her finger beside the sign that said Enyonam's Kitchen, Jollof, Fufu, Light Soup, Home, and the sound of the fryer warming up behind her, because she had turned it on at 5 that morning, same as every morning, was the most familiar, most beloved sound in the world. That is the story of a pharmacy line, a $40 bill, and 3 black SUVs that drove into a Saturday market on a morning in March. She didn't pay for his medication because she was expecting something back. She paid because he needed it, and she had the money, and to her, in that moment, that was the entire equation. Sekou Diallo had $1.2 billion across 4 countries, and the most important thing that ever happened to him cost $40 and a stranger's uncalculated grace. His father used to say, before he passed, before the taxi and the long roads and the years, a person's worth is not in what they hold, it is in what they give away when they have nothing left to spare. Enyonam Darko walked out of a Shoppers Drug Mart on a gray Tuesday in November and handed away the last $40 in her pocket because a man needed his blood pressure medication. She didn't make a speech. She didn't wait to be thanked. She went to the bus stop, went home, and figured out how to make the week work. And that is the lesson. The hand that gives when it barely has enough will always be richer than the hand that takes when it has more than it needs. The booth that feeds a neighborhood is worth more than the tower that replaces it. And sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one standing behind a hand-painted sign with palm oil on their apron, holding a ladle, refusing to move. Because every story has something worth keeping, and ancient African folktales never forgets. Now, would you have stepped out of that line? Would you have put down your last $40 for a stranger's prescription? Be honest, drop your answer in the comments, and tell us where in Canada you're watching from today. Toronto, Brampton, Ottawa, Vancouver, Calgary, Halifax, Edmonton. Wherever you are, we see you. If this story moved something in you, subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you never miss another one. We will see you in the next tale.